Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. A dozen Chinese nationals wanted by the FBI. They're part of a hacking network taking orders from Beijing. NTD's sister media, the Epoch-Times, has been confirmed as one of the targets, along with federal agencies, foreign governments, and a religious group. U.S. companies ask lawmakers to crack down on Chinese companies involved in unfair business.
For years, we have battled unfairly traded imports of cast iron products. Heavily subsidized Chinese foundries operate below cost and dump these products in the United States far below fair market value.
Lawmakers call on Americans to ditch Chinese-made wireless routers, saying they open the door for hackers. This as a congressional committee examines the damage done by Chinese hacking.
This isn't just a cyber threat. This is part of the CCP's larger strategy to destroy the American way of life.
Taiwan microchip giant TSMC saying its $165 billion total investment in the U.S. is driven by rising demand. The island's president calling it a historic moment for U.S.-Taiwan relations. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we dive into today's news, make sure to use the link down below to subscribe to our newsletter. Each week, we round up the highlights and controversies happening around China and the world, and share an exclusive behind-the-scenes snapshot with our readers. Keep an eye out. The newsletter will land in your inbox Friday morning. The Justice Department Wednesday revealed 3 lawsuits locking onto 12 Chinese nationals, accusing them of involvement with Beijing-backed cybercrimes. The FBI listed them as most wanted individuals and is offering millions of dollars in rewards for people who can assist in arresting them. Among the victims are federal agencies, religious and human rights groups, and NTD's sister media, the Epoch-Times.
8 of the defendants work for iSoon, a Chinese tech firm that has hacked victims around the world. Their hit list included U.S. government agencies and dissident groups the CCP considers a threat. From 2016 through 2023, iSoon breached email accounts, cell phones, servers, and websites under Beijing's instructions. Victims include the Epoch-Times, a New York-based newspaper that publishes China-related news critical of the Chinese regime, an organization that promotes human rights in China, a U.S. religious organization with thousands of churches, the foreign ministries of Taiwan, India, South Korea, and Indonesia, a U.S.-based religious leader, the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, the Department of Commerce, and the New York State Assembly. The iSoon associates, as well as 2 officials from China's Ministry of Public Security, are charged with conspiracy to commit computer intrusions and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. They face a combined maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. According to the indictment, iSoon not only hacked, but also trained Chinese security officials in cyber attacks. The company allegedly sold custom hacking software to infiltrate platforms like Microsoft Outlook, Gmail, Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. In December 2016, iSoon, under orders from Chinese officer Wang Liu, launched a DDoS attack that shut down the Epoch-Times website. By May 2017, they compromised key staff email accounts. In September 2017, Officer Shang Jing instructed iSoon to track Chinese users accessing the site to locate dissidents. Wang later provided iSoon with administrative access to the website. Janice Trey, CEO of the Epoch-Times, praised the U.S. government for prosecuting the hackers, calling the newspaper the most feared by the CCP due to its, quote, unwavering commitment to truthful reporting and China coverage. All 12 people remain at large. The State Department is offering up to $10 million for information on iSoon and its employees, as well as the 2 Ministry of Public Security officials. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
According to the indictment, iSoon has worked with 43 Chinese spy bureaus and generated tens of millions of dollars in revenue. Here are some of the iSoon hacking products that the DOJ presented. This one can send email phishing attacks. And this one allows users to hack into accounts or computer systems by deciphering passwords. This one can breach onto Outlook mailboxes as soon as targets click on certain phishing links. Another targets Gmail boxes, allow hackers to take control of targeted emails and download their content. As for X, this product helps Chinese authorities understand public opinion outside of China after they take over the hacked accounts. The FBI issued a public alert Wednesday revealing this extensive hire and hack ecosystem. This system serves as a secret weapon for the Chinese Communist Party, targeting organizations and governments that Beijing sees as a threat to its regime. A message to Congress from a group of American businesses: the U.S. must crack down on Chinese companies being subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party and those circumventing U.S. tariffs by shipping goods through third countries. Executives from a slate of mid-sized industrial companies met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill Wednesday. They said for years the U.S. has been losing out on tariff revenue. And what's more, American companies have been forced out of businesses by Chinese firms that exploited trade rules. Take a listen.
For years, we have battled unfairly traded imports of cast iron products. Heavily subsidized Chinese foundries operate below cost and dump these products in the United States far below fair market value. Over the course of the last 7 years, we have spent millions of dollars to avail ourselves of every legal remedy to stop dumping, illegal subsidies, transshipment, and customs fraud from Chinese producers who wish to take our jobs. We have filed and won anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases, with duties ranging from 41 to 494%. To avoid paying these duties, Chinese producers transship their products through third countries, primarily Malaysia and Cambodia, where they are fraudulently labeled as originating from those nations. By our estimate, and to Betsy's point, we believe Customs has been unable to collect $51 million in duties owed on our products alone, robbing the Treasury of revenue it desperately needs. Current penalties for such behavior are woefully inadequate. To put it bluntly, the AD-CVD process and the EPA process is broken and in desperate need of repair. To address this, we have a separate bill called the Fighting Trade Cheats Act. Short of the provisions in this bicameral and bipartisan bill, industries will no longer undertake AD-CVD cases. These cases are costly to file and win, and the promise of relief has become non-existent in the face of rampant cheating and lax trade enforcement. Thank you for your efforts.
That was Brad Mueller, Vice President of Corporate Communications, Charlotte Pipe and Foundry. This company was founded in 1901, some 120 years ago. It's the largest American producer of cast iron, plastic pipe, and fittings for plumbing. We'll bring you more stories of American mid-sized companies suffering due to CCP-subsidized companies in the future. NTD's Steve Lance sat down with two executives to talk about their years-long fight with competitors backed by Chinese state subsidies. David Rashid is the executive chairman at Plouffe & Edelman, and Brad Mueller is the vice president of corporate communications at Charlotte Pipe and Foundry. Let's dive in.
Brad Mueller, David Rashid, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's great to have you both. You were actually on Capitol Hill today with the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. The topic of the conference, the press conference that you guys were at, was about China's trade violations. If you could, Brad, talk to us about what the implications are and how concerning this is.
Yeah, Steve, for too long, our trading partners, both friend and foe, have taken advantage of America's markets and this notion of free trade. Free trade really doesn't exist. Countries are always going to pursue their own self-interest, and for too long we've been taken advantage of. And it's time to bring jobs back to America and bring manufacturing back to America. And I think the President and the Congress are starting to look at ways to do that.
And David, you have firsthand experience in seeing how this is actually done. How concerned were the lawmakers when you first brought this to their attention, and what is the way to resolve it?
Yeah, so the lawmakers were aware, but I think every news story has a nuance to it. I think, I tried to follow the system. So I went to the Department of Justice and filed a False Claims Act. I went to Customs and Border Protection. I filed an e-allegation against a competitor who was transshipping into this country. And I had beautiful evidence, perfect evidence. And unfortunately, none of those agencies did anything for me. So when I went to the select committee, that was my last straw. I went to my congressman, Darren LaHood, who was an amazing advocate for us. And he invited us to go testify at the select committee on China. They had a hearing in Wisconsin. And when I went, I thought I need to take to them a solution, not just my problem. And so I had found a group called the Trade Fraud Task Force, which was a 1 or 2 person operation inside the Department of Justice on the civil side, who had tried to help me out, but they also got stuck in the system. And so I talked to them about what they did and how important their work was and how they needed to really focus on growing that. And they did their own investigation, and what they realized was this was, in fact, a potential solution. And that, eventually converted into the bill that we were promoting today. So they were frustrated, but too looking for a solution. And by interviewing people like me, people like Bradford, they learned more, and based on that, they took action that turned into this bill that we're introducing today.
What is in this bill? Does it have teeth to actually get done what you're looking to see?
It does. I think when we talk about teeth, it allows the criminal division of the DOJ to go after people who commit trade crime and put them in jail. And a criminal process takes a lot less time than a civil process. So when you're dealing with a civil process, you can be dealing with 5, 7, 10 years between making the allegation and actually having that person pay. And in that period of time, they can shut down their company and move. So it's very ineffective. Criminal is a lot more effective. So the first thing that this bill does is it's suggesting that, or it's advocating for the fact that this trade crime unit be in the criminal division of the DOJ versus the civil division. 2, it adds resources. And so what this bill does is it mandates a yearly reporting to the Attorney General and to Congress as to the effectiveness of their actions. So it puts resources in place, it allows them to go after these people criminally, and it requires them to report on an annual basis, the outcomes of their work, which is so critical.
Brad, I want to get your thoughts. President Trump just increasing tariffs on China. What do you say to that argument that tariffs are a tax on the American people?
Well, I think what we saw, Steve, in the first Trump administration when he imposed tariffs, they proved to not be inflationary. You remember, inflation was 1.9% when President Trump left office. I think there will be short-term pain, and there is a little bit of uncertainty, and markets have reacted negatively. But the long-term gain from ending the unfair trade practices that drive our American manufacturing jobs overseas is far better for America than a little bit of short-term uncertainty in markets and trade.
Brad Mueller, David Rashid, really appreciate you both.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
A House committee is zeroing in on the threat of the Chinese Communist Party, especially to American infrastructure through cyber attacks and espionage. NTD national correspondent Jason Blair has more from the nation's capital.
As we speak, the Chinese Communist Party is waging a full-scale cyber war against the American people.
The bipartisan House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party had a hearing to talk about what intelligence officials are saying about the current threats from the Communist Party in regards to cybersecurity, as well as what the U.S. can do to defend against it. One message that the committee wanted to get across is that this is just one area where the CCP is waging warfare against the U.S. However, it is one area that can do a lot of damage. Chair Molinar said in his opening statement that CCP's hackers have targeted things like water treatment plants, power grids that power homes, as well as even hospitals. Molinar gave 2 recent examples of big cyber attacks from Chinese hackers, one that targeted telecommunications companies like AT&T and Verizon, where they were able to gain access to millions of phones, gaining access to sensitive data from those users, as well as listening into conversations pretty much at will. And this ranged from, your everyday person up to even the president and vice president. He also brought up another recent example where Chinese hackers targeted critical infrastructure in the U.S., gaining access to, like I mentioned earlier, water treatment plants, power grids, things like that. And intelligence officials are telling them that the CCP plans to kind of use these whenever they feel the need to, in case there's some kind of conflict, perhaps something to do with Taiwan or anything else that they deem worthy to activate these vulnerabilities.
It is clear Xi Jinping's goal is to sabotage our way of life when the time is right for his regime. We must understand that this isn't just a cyber threat. This is part of the CCP's larger strategy to destroy the American way of life.
And Chair Molinar continued saying, quote, the CCP views all forms of warfare, cyber, economic, ideological, and military as different tools to achieve the same goal, global domination through the defeat of its enemies. As far as what the U.S. can do to deter and defend against it, Ranking Member Krishnamurthy brought up some solutions to address the weaknesses from the two most recent major cyber attacks, as well as the U.S. increasing the cyber talent workforce, both in the government and the private sector. And he also really wanted to emphasize that the U.S. needs to start holding the CCP accountable when these attacks happen.
It means imposing costs on the CCP each time they attack us. When Xi Jinping decides whether to launch another attack, he needs to ask himself whether the costs are worth the benefits.
These aren't just cyber criminals. These aren't just asymmetrical threats. These are real planned threat actors who have made a decision and orchestrated attacks against the United States, who largely have not been held accountable by either Republican or Democratic administrations.
One common message the committee has been relaying is that the CCP is dead set on using any means possible to achieve their goal of dominating the world, and they have really not shown any sign of wanting to peacefully coexist. Reporting on Capitol Hill, Jason Blair, NTD News.
The committee also urged Americans to remove Chinese-made wireless routers from their homes, including those from a brand called TP-Link. Lawmakers say the entity is a security threat that opened the door for China to hack U.S. critical infrastructure. Taiwan President William Lai calling chip giant TSMC's investment in the U.S. a historic moment for U.S.-Taiwan relations. He specifically added that Taiwan received no pressure from Washington when the decision was made. TSMC saying Thursday it's expanding investment in the U.S. due to large U.S. consumer demand.
Because of clients' demand, so far all of our production lines this and next year are fully booked. Even the production line that will be built the year after next is booked too.
TSMC plans to build 3 new fabrication plants, 2 advanced packaging facilities, and a major R&D center. The chipmaker said the project marked the largest single foreign direct investment in American history. Its CEO added the company's investment plan would not impact the chipmaker's expansion in Taiwan. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te called the investment plan a historical moment for U.S.-Taiwan relations.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.